If you think political upheavals only happen in unstable countries, then look to the United States, the self-proclaimed center of modern democracy. Even seemingly untouchable agencies like the Pentagon sometimes have earthquakes that shake the entire system of power. And this time, the shocking event is the Pentagon's sudden dismissal of the Director of Defense Intelligence, a figure who holds the most important secrets on the planet. Imagine, one peaceful morning, you open the newspaper and see the headline: Director of Defense Intelligence of the United States is fired immediately. You don't need to be a political expert to understand that this is like the captain of a giant warship being ordered to leave his seat in the middle of a storm. So what really happened? Why did the Pentagon choose this time to act? And what will be the consequences of that decision? In today's video, History and War will dissect the shocking incident with you, not only from the perspective of international press, but also based on historical, military facts, and defense maps, which are often hidden behind a veil of secrecy. And of course, as is our usual style, the story will be told in a style that is both serious and a bit satirical, so that the heavy issues become more accessible. Chapter 1: The Earthquake at the Pentagon. The event of the Pentagon removing the U.S. Director of Defense Intelligence has surprised observers with its speed and unexpectedness. Normally, high-level personnel decisions in the U.S. defense apparatus are often announced in advance, have a transition period, and rarely cause a feeling of cutting off like this time. 1.1. The main character in the eye of the storm. Who is the person removed? It is not simply an administrative official. The Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, is the head of the agency responsible for collecting, analyzing, and reporting military intelligence from around the world. This is the agency that holds detailed military maps of every opponent, from North Korea's secret tunnels to Russia's strategic submarine fleet. Imagine you're playing chess. You have a notebook that records all of your opponent's typical moves, even their habits when they drink tea while playing. That notebook is defense intelligence, and the person who kept it has just been forced to leave his seat. The official reason and the hidden reason. According to initial information from the Pentagon, the reason given is reorganizing the apparatus to suit the new situation. It sounds reasonable, but if you're familiar with this type of press release, you can probably guess. It's usually just a cover. In fact, there are three main hypotheses raised by observers. First, the Director of Intelligence may no longer be favored by the White House in handling hot issues, especially the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. Second, internal conflicts over strategic orientation. The Pentagon is currently divided into two streams. One side wants to focus on containing China in the Pacific, the other prioritizes focusing on Europe and the Middle East. It is not impossible that there have been serious intelligence errors which have surprised Washington in some recent events. Some experts even sarcastically said, in the US, when you fail, you write a book, but when you fail as Director of Intelligence, you write a resignation letter. Immediate impact. Losing such an important position is like a football team playing in the World Cup suddenly losing its head coach. Generals and strategists are forced to juggle defense while scrambling to find replacements. More importantly, this sends a signal of instability to allies. Japan, South Korea, and NATO, countries that rely on U.S. intelligence to make decisions, now have reason to question whether the reports they receive are still absolutely reliable. The story on the defense map. To visualize this more clearly, open the world map. The hottest areas today include Ukraine, where Russia is still stepping up its military campaign, while the US is constantly having to adjust its support for Kiev, the East Sea and Taiwan. China increases military exercises, the US increases its military presence. The Middle East, Israel, Iran, and armed groups continue to test Washington's patience. The Director of Defense Intelligence is like a map holder guiding the way in the maze. When the map is taken from your hands, the risk of getting lost increases many times over. Chapter 2. The unknowns behind the unexpected decision. If, in Chapter 1, we analyzed the direct cause of the Pentagon's sudden dismissal of the U.S. Director of Defense Intelligence, then in Chapter 2, we will delve into the unknowns hidden behind the thick curtain of the political military world. First of all, We must frankly admit that changing senior leaders in the military intelligence system is not like changing the coach of a football team. If the team loses, the coach can be pushed out immediately and fans will wait for a miracle from his successor. But in intelligence, a sudden change often reflects profound fluctuations or strategic disagreements at the highest level. According to the analysis of the defense map by experts, the US military is currently facing 3 pressures at the same time. Russia is expanding its activities in Eastern Europe, especially in the Donbass region. China increases pressure in the South China Sea and Taiwan. The Middle East continues to be unstable, especially after Israel tested the Lightning laser weapon system in the air. In this context, the sudden dismissal of the US Director of Defense Intelligence is no different than the sudden replacement of a rook with a pawn in the middle of a chess game. So what really happened? Why did the Pentagon choose this time to act? And what will be the consequences of that decision? One hypothesis that many observers have put forward is that this director had reports or strategic views that were inconsistent with the direction of the Pentagon and the White House. For example, while some generals emphasized the threat from China in the Pacific, the Intelligence Department focused too much of its resources on monitoring Russia on the Ukraine front. This contradiction, if prolonged, will create a gap in strategic coordination, like a football team where the striker only wants to score goals while the defender cares about keeping the ball to make the statistics look good. What is more noteworthy is that the silent dismissal has created mixed public opinion. Some commentators in Washington called it an office shock, while others compared it to a small political earthquake, suggesting that the US intelligence system may be suffering from internal divisions. Chapter 3. Meaning, Consequences, and Messages to the World. After analyzing the causes and unknowns, we need to ask, what does this decision mean for the United States, its allies, and its opponents? First, for the United States, the dismissal of the Director of Defense Intelligence is a move to affirm that their military intelligence system does not accept any mistakes in the context of global strategic competition. It's like a driver driving on a crowded highway. When he feels a slight vibration, he immediately stops to change the spare tire, instead of waiting for the tire to blow out. Second, to allies, this decision is both a warning and a reassurance. It warns that the United States is ready to act strongly to maintain discipline, but at the same time reassures that the machine is still well controlled, not letting the incident affect the entire strategy. In other words, Washington is sending a signal. Don't worry, we are still steering the wheel. Third, for rivals like Russia and China, the message is more complicated. They may see this as a sign of instability, a gap to exploit. But they may also be cautious, knowing that when the United States changes generals strongly, it means they are preparing for a new, harsher, and more unpredictable battle. A clear illustration. After replacing the Director of Defense Intelligence, the Pentagon can restructure the satellite data collection network in Europe, strengthen surveillance in the South China Sea, and accelerate the space defense project. On the defense map, the red hotspots from Ukraine to Taiwan to the Middle East can be connected into a continuous surveillance system. Any opponent who dares to act rashly will immediately catch the eye of the god. Finally, the deeper meaning. This is not just a personnel decision, but a political military message showing that the United States is reaffirming its superpower status despite internal turmoil. And in the world of international politics, replacing people is often the easiest way to refresh the apparatus, sending a strong signal to the outside. Conclusion, summary, and appeal. Through 3 chapters, we have gone from the direct cause to the hidden factor behind, and finally, to the meaning, consequences of the Pentagon's sudden dismissal of the US Director of Defense Intelligence. From that, we can see that in the volatile world of global security defense, every personnel decision is not simple, but contains great strategic calculations. If you are interested in history, war, and tense developments on the world defense map, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the History and War channel to always update our in-depth, unique, and humorous analysis.